Hello, and welcome back this week to the show. I'm so glad you're here. And this week, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what actually keeps people from their purpose because it's funny, right? I mean, you'd think that if purpose was just such a thing, if we're all kind of here for a reason, if we're all here to be a doctor, or be a lawyer, or help other people, or if we all just have a reason to be here and you sort of subscribe to that motto or that thought process or that philosophy, or, I mean, that could even be a little bit on, some sort of religion that you're involved with that believes that, then why is it so hard to find? Why do we have such trouble finding it? If purpose is so easy, if purpose is a thing that is supposed to be a thing in life, if purpose is one of those things that we all should have, and we should all be carrying out our purpose, why does it feel so hard to find? And that's what we're going to talk about this week. And I want to just talk a little bit about some of the different things that I've experienced in my life, first and foremost, or like kind of mixed into the conversation actually, just to give some like live examples, and not just like the how-tos or the why nots, but some of what I've experienced, because I think that it, first of all, helps to have an understanding of like what other people go through, because then we're like, oh, it's not just me. But also because I think it'll help you understand that sometimes it's not just a straight line. And my kind of, I guess, like philosophy on that is life is an experience, or experiences. And if we were just given like a roadmap or a blueprint or something that said like, okay, this is your life purpose and this is what I want you to do. Well, first and foremost, human nature would probably tell whatever that was to go jump in a lake anyway, because that's just how we are. But then it wouldn't be an experience. Life wouldn't be a situation where we get to, try this and have an experience and then pivot and give our feedback to other people about what we learned and help each other. And so life would just be kind of boring, wouldn't it? So as frustrating as it can be sometimes to feel like you're not sure what your life purpose is, and you just kind of wish someone would just tell you. Now, I've heard people say that all the time. I used to say it all the time myself. I wish someone would just tell me what my purpose was. Even though that is a huge wish of all of ours, I'm to some degree, I'm glad that we're not told that. Because again, I think life would be boring if we were just straight up told what our purpose was in life. But anyway, I wanted to talk about 4 things today that I think keep people from finding their purpose and exploring it and carrying it out and really feeling like they're living a truly purposeful, fulfilling life. And for me, I went through lots of different stuff, and it wasn't until I discovered human design that some of that kind of make a little bit more sense for me. And human design is a tool that I use every day. In fact, I'm getting my coaching certification in human design. And it's something that combines chakra centers, energy centers, astrology, and various other things to give you what your human design is. It's based on where you're born, when you're born, etc. And for me, when I was younger, in my like 20s and 30s, I went through a lot of experimenting. I was an athletic training student when I was in college, and I graduated, went to get my master's degree. And from there, I wanted to go into teaching athletic training and be an athletic trainer at a university, which I did do after I graduated from college, after 6 years of being in school. And I did that for 10 months, and I ditched it because I wasn't making any money. And so after that, I just kind of landed in different places and different things. It wasn't really this super intentional process until about my late 20s, where I hired a coach, and then we got a little bit more intentional then. But the whole time, or at least most of the time, the thing that I was most frustrated with was not knowing my purpose. What is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I tried and tried and tried. And so I did athletic training. I worked at a winery. I went into staffing. I did sales. I landed in the life sciences business where I actually ended up spending about 15 years. And here I am, a little bit later in life. And now I'm at the point where I feel genuinely connected to my purpose. And human design really did help me with that, because what I realized, and I wish I would have known this before, but I'm a 4/6 projector, and the 4 and the 6, won't get into it here because this isn't a human design video, but being in human design, I'm a 4/6, and 6s tend to experiment a lot when they're in their younger years. And it's not till they get kind of later in their 30s and 40s and 50s do they really come into kind of knowing what their purpose is. So I do think that's part of it. And that could be part of it for you too. But that's not necessarily one of the things that are keeping you from living your life purpose. But I would say the 4 things are when you feel like you don't know what you want to do. All right. A lot of people go through life and they say over and over and over again, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what my life purpose is. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I want. And so when we get into this place of feeling like we don't even know what we want, how are we supposed to really take action, right? So then that turns into just getting stuck. And I hear this all the time. In fact, one time I did this survey thing and I talked to a lot of people and I did really long interviews with them, and the overarching or the most prominent thing people talked to me about was how they felt stuck. And I think there's a whole world of not knowing what you want, but I would say that you probably do know what you want. You're just afraid to admit it. I mean, for me, I wanted my own business for so long, but I was slightly afraid to admit it, and I was scared out of my mind that I couldn't make any money doing my purpose. So there was a lot of abundance on being in the corporate world. There was a lot of abundant mindset in doing the work that I was doing, but there wasn't a big abundant mindset in starting my own business. So I did know what I wanted. I just didn't take the action. And then when I would try to take the action, I was working a full-time job. And again, if I go back to my human design, I'm a projector. So trying to work 40 hours doing a full-time job and starting a business, I'm not saying projectors can't do it, but one of the most prominent characteristics of projectors is they do deep work for like more sprints, like shorter periods of the day. And working 40, 60 hours a week is not their typical. There are some projectors who do that, but that's a whole other conversation why I think that is. But anyway, yeah. So then I would get frustrated with myself because I would say, okay, I'm going to try this thing and I'm going to see if I can do it. But then I never quit my full-time job. So I was trying to do my full-time job and start a business. So at the end of the day, I really did know what I wanted. So if this is you, if you think to yourself more often than not, and you're saying, I just feel stuck because I don't know what I want, I don't know what I want, I just feel stuck. What I would say to you is if you had to worry about nothing, so if you didn't have to worry about money, you didn't have to worry about upsetting your family, you didn't have to worry about wasting your college degree, if you didn't have to worry about losing your home because you're not going to have any money, if you didn't have to worry about feeding yourself, like none of that stuff, just completely off the table. And I know this is a little bit of an unrealistic exercise, but it'll start get the juices flowing of what you actually really want. So if you just thought about all those things, you took them all off the table, like you've just pretend you literally have your kitchen table full of a bunch of crap and you take it all off. You take money, you take what people think about you, you take judgment, you take the fear of losing everything, just take it all off the table. And you think to yourself, okay, what do I want to now put on this table? What would make me happy? And it doesn't have to be right and it doesn't have to be wrong. That's the other thing is like, don't do this thing where you start doing this extra, like, oh, but and you start like getting wrapped around the axle about everything that you put on the table. No, don't do that. Instead, just start putting things on the table and see where it goes and see what you really do want. And I'm not going to go into all the depths of why we feel like we don't know what we want or we get afraid to say what we want. But I do think shame is part of it. For me, I grew up in a town of less than 2,000 people. My parents didn't have tons and tons of money. We didn't go without, so I'm not saying that. But, it's not like my parents had tons and tons of money. And so I grew up that way, and because I grew up that way, it feels almost shameful sometimes for me to feel like I want to be a millionaire, for example. And the first year that I ever made, actually it was the most money I ever made in my life, was my first year in sales. And I went to my boss. I remember I went to my boss afterwards and I was like, I don't think I can do this. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I told him, I said, I feel guilty. I feel shameful for having this kind of money and getting these kind of bonuses. And it was just a really weird experience. So you never really know kind of what's like tucked in the back of your mind based on like where you grew up or how the people talked about money when you were, when you were growing up or whatever it is. So that's like a whole nother ball of wax, but just to like get the juices flowing so you can at least get out of that I don't know what I want mode, start just brainstorming with yourself without any judgment, without freaking out, without thinking somebody's like going to think you're stupid or weird or silly. Just take all those worries off the table and start thinking about what it is that you want. And stop saying that too, by the way. Stop saying, I don't know what I want. Stop saying that. Because if you keep saying that, your brain's like, cool, yeah, we don't know what we want. And it'll really buy into that and you just get stuck there. Like, because the mind wants you to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again for the rest of your life, because that's how it keeps you safe and that's where it feels comfortable. So if you keep saying that, it's gonna be like, yeah, cool. Yeah. That's very predictable. Yep. We don't know what we want. So you really have to find a way to get out of saying things like that to yourself, because the more you say it, the more you're just going to keep being this. It's like more of the same. So that'll get your juices flowing. It'll get you from stop being so stuck. The other reason people feel like they don't have a purpose or feel like they can't find their purpose is there's almost this survival mechanism that takes over their mind. And because we live in the year 2024, survival isn't necessarily about, making sure an animal doesn't jump out of a bush and eat me, or not for most of us anyway. I'm not saying there's nowhere in this world that is like that, but in most societies, we don't really have to worry about those types of things anymore. And we almost don't even have to worry about major food shortages either, because not a lot of us are going outside and like planting things and hoping it grows and then that's our food for the winter. Most of us have access to grocery stores. Again, I'm not saying everybody does, but most of us have access to some level of food that is put in a store for us that we can go buy. And so what we have now is a situation where our survival is more wrapped around money. I watched a video one time, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld, and I think Denzel Washington has also commented on this before. Like, money didn't used to mean so much. Like, when did money become so important? And I don't really know the total ins and outs of all of that, but what I would say is, my theory is it's just become more and more and more and more of a survival mechanism. And so what keeps people from finding their purpose is the fear of not being able to make money with their purpose. And it's as if they always have to go together. It's like you can't just like get up, go to work, do a 9-to-5 job and come home and then your purpose is to take care of your kids or take care of your elderly parents or volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, right? So it's like purpose is so associated with money that there's this fear that I'm going to basically not try to find my purpose because I can't make money doing my purpose. So some people might actually feel pretty connected to what their purpose might be, but then they think, I can't make money doing that. And so what I would say from an exercise standpoint, if you feel like what's keeping you from your purpose is that you can't make money with it, what I want you to do is this. I want you to sit down at the desk or your computer or your phone or anything, any place where you have access to Google. And I want you to Google people making money, fill in the blank with what your purpose is. So just see if there's anybody else in this world making money doing the thing that you want to do or making money with your purpose. And I would say that there's all sorts of crazy examples out there, maybe you really love shoes and you really love helping people, but you have no idea how to get started making shoes. And then you kind of feel like, well, but making shoes doesn't really mean anything. A great example of this is Tom's Shoes. If you don't know Tom's Shoes, hopefully you do, but if you don't, there's a brand. It's called Tom's Shoes. And when the gentleman, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head, but I can't. When the gentleman started Tom's Shoes, he decided to donate a pair of shoes for every pair of shoe sold. And so, yeah, it wasn't necessarily that shoes were like his passion or his purpose, but helping kids that didn't have shoes get shoes was his purpose. So he found an avenue to it. So I say that because sometimes we think like we get so stuck in this, oh, my purpose can't make money. And we're not really like, I would say like being creative with it. We're not really thinking, but where does that plug in? And could I make money doing that? And by the way, I don't think that this always has to mean that you start your own business and stuff like that too, right? Like these kind of things, like you could sit down and say, what company does fill in the blank with what your purpose is? So you might even be able to just find a company to go work for and then fall in love with that company because they're doing work that you can do work at because it's using your purpose. So that's another one. That's the second one, that the reason people don't find their purpose is because they shut it down before they even really go there because they feel like it's not going to make them money. The third thing that keeps people from finding their purpose or even doing their purpose, carrying out their passions, whatever you want to call it, doing work they love, is they're worried about what other people will think. And this is a big one. Because other people might mean your kids, your spouse, your parents. These other people I speak of are really important people in our lives usually. And it's not just that we're worried about what they might think about us, but we're also worried about letting them down and disappointing them. For me, last year, I decided to leave corporate. And because like I mentioned earlier in the video, I've wanted to start my business for a really long time. And I had a couple months that I was playing around with just because of a financial situation. And before I decided to go back to before I decided to leave corporate and start my own business, my husband was like, are you going to go back and get a job? Because so he was clearly like picking up on the idea and the fact that I was thinking about not going back and getting a corporate job, but I was thinking about starting my own business. And I'm really close to my husband. Like we see each other often, we talk to each other often. And I was afraid to tell him. Because I was afraid that if I didn't make the kind of money that I've made for probably like the last 15 years, that he wouldn't love me. And I literally had to tell him that. I had to have it come out of my mouth, because if I didn't, I think I would have just got stuck there. I would have been like hiding and I would have been freaking out and I probably wouldn't have started my own business. And the fact of the matter is, I was afraid to disappoint my husband. I was afraid that he wouldn't love me as much if I didn't make as much money as I did. I was afraid that he might not even love me at all. So This one's a big one. Thinking about or worrying about what others will say and how they'll feel is a really big one. And we especially get stuck in this one when we have a family or other people that what we're deciding to do impacts other people. Another good example of this could be, let's just say your mom and dad saved their whole life for you to go to university or go to college. And then you go, and then you graduate, and then you get a job in the space in which you got your major in. And then you do that job for like a year or two, or maybe 10, maybe 15 years. I don't even know how long you're going to stay in that job without liking it, but you're miserable the whole time. And you don't want to change because you're so worried that your parents will be upset at you because they put you through university, they put you through college, and now you're just going to throw it in the trash can because, because you don't want to do that thing anymore. And that's a hard one. That's a really hard one, especially if you really respect that your parents earned a living so you could go to university just to not do that thing that you said you were going to go to university for. So that's a really big one. And so how do we overcome this? As I mentioned earlier, I was really worried about what my husband was going to think when I decided to do my own business or start my own business. And I would say one of the top best things you can do, and this is so simple, but it works and it's helpful, is to actually just talk about it. And you can say things like, I might be wrong, but I feel like you might be really disappointed in me if I don't go back and get a job. Or I might be wrong, but I'm really worried that you're going to be very upset at me if I switch careers out of what I went to school for, mom and dad. So my advice to you, if you're worried about what other people will think, and that's what's stopping you from pursuing what you dream of pursuing, or pursuing your passions, or pursuing your purpose, I would say and highly recommend having a conversation with the people that matter most. And the reason I put the matter most on there is because it's so important to not worry about what ancillaries think. You just can't do that. It's too much. It's too much. Brene Brown says this all the time. She said that she carries around a piece of paper in her purse, and there are people on that piece of paper in her purse that matter to her, and their opinions of her and their thoughts of her matter to her. And I think it's like a very short list. I want to say she said like maybe 2 or 3 people. And when she comes to a crossroads and needs to talk through things, those are the people that she goes to talk to and nobody else. So I don't say talk to everybody about what you want to do to get permission per se, but just to let it out, just to let out the worries that you have, get it out of your system. You might be really shocked what people might say. Like my husband, oh, poor guy. He gave me a hug. He's like, no. What? Like, why would I not love you just because you're not making as much money as you did before? So it made me feel a lot better. And it almost made me feel a little silly that I even had to do that. But it's really impactful and can make a big difference if you just simply tell the people that are in your life about what you're thinking of doing, and not to be confused with letting them sway what you do. I mean, honestly, if my husband did say, yeah, I'm not going to love you as much if you don't make as much money, honestly, I would have to really think about that. I know it sounds maybe kind of crazy, but I don't want to be with somebody who's not going to support me in my life streams. So, yeah, I mean, it's all personal choice really, but I think the most important thing when it comes to getting out of your way and trying to find your purpose and not letting what other people think of you get in your way and stop you from doing what you want to do and doing work that you love is having a conversation with those people that matter the most to you in life, and sharing your vulnerabilities with them and sharing what's scaring you and seeing what they say. And the fourth and final thing that I think keeps people from finding their purpose is no action. And I know this might sound like an obvious one, but one of the things that I hear all the time, going back to the beginning, is I don't know what I want. Well, it's hard to tell sometimes what you want if you're not taking any action and you don't have any feedback and you don't know what it's like or how it feels to do that thing you think you want to do. So if you can take action and kind of just see how it feels, it'll give you so much intel and so much insight into which direction to take this. It's like data collection. It's like if you go and if you just take one tiny itty bitty little step in the direction of finding your purpose or doing your purpose, like maybe you're like, you know what? I've always admired photographers and I always love pictures and I love art and I think I might be good at that. Maybe I would enjoy that. And you literally pick up a phone and you call somebody that you know who has a nice camera or has at least a decent camera. And you say, hey, I know this is a lot to ask, but would you mind if I borrowed your camera? And then you just go out on a Saturday afternoon and take some photos and see what comes back. See if you loved it. See if you hated it. Could you see yourself doing a lot of that? So it's just try it, just try it out for a little bit. And I like this also. I like this fourth thing, and I like talking about this. I like talking about the fact that one of the reasons people don't find their purpose or it keeps them from their purpose is not taking action, is because I think that this one is so helpful for your brain to get on board with because A, it gives it something to do. It gives it an objective. But B, it doesn't make it feel like it's burning down the house just to find your purpose. Some people think they have to sell their house and get rid of their cars and divorce their spouse and never talk to mom and dad ever again or move cities or these really big things. And if you can do that and it works and you find yourself okay and your brain doesn't completely have a meltdown, go for it. I'm not saying don't let that stop you. I'm not saying don't have it stop you if you're able to make it happen. But what I am saying is that sometimes people let this thought process of feeling like they have to change their entire life or their entire world just to start doing work they love or just to find their purpose or just this or just that or follow their passions. And that's not really true. In fact, I actually kind of recommend not doing that because, again, I just read in a book that I'm reading that your brain literally will send out distress signals if and when you do something different than what it's normally used to doing, which is so crazy to think about. Literally it's sending distress signals through your body when you just do something different, let alone change jobs or let alone move cities or let alone, move in general. So I would say on this one, just take action. Just take small, teeny, itty bitty, tiny steps in a direction that you think you want to go in so that you're not turning your life upside down. Your brain doesn't freak out. And that will give you data and feedback to see, do I like this? Do I not like this? And then once you get to that point where you're like, ooh, I really like this. I could really see myself doing this. This might even feel kind of like my life's purpose. Then you can start thinking about, okay, what do I need to do in order for me to have this in my life? Whether that's making it your job, making it your hobby. If it's a, place you love to visit, how do I visit this place more often? So from a purpose standpoint, you can then, once you take action and then you get the data and then you get the feedback, then you get your mind on board because your mind will start seeing that it's okay, that you're not going to completely ruin your life just to pursue something. Then that leads you to having the ability to do your purpose and do it in a way that is safe and makes your body feel safe and your mind feel safe and your soul feel safe. And this is where I tell people to just take small action because small action will inevitably give you so much feedback and so information. So Just to recap, the 4 things that I really think keep people from finding their purpose are saying they don't know what they want, feeling like they can't make any money doing it, thinking about what other people will think of them, and then not taking action. And there's such simple, easy steps around all of these. And if you just try out those things that I mentioned during this whole video, I think you'll find that it doesn't have to feel like you're climbing like Mount Kilimanjaro or something. Like, I think people feel like finding their purpose is so hard. And I get that because I mean, we're not taught how to do that. So it's not like we go through to school and, to some degree, even our family, our friends, or whoever are raising us, they're not necessarily teaching us that either. They're too busy teaching us how to act, right? Like how to be good humans, which is also valuable. But we're really, when we're younger, we're just trying to get to a place where we're fitting into polite society, where we're learning manners, we're figuring things out, we're figuring out what disappointment looks like. So there's a lot of things that keep us busy in our younger years. And hey, finding your purpose just isn't one of them. And then we get out of our parents' hands, or whoever's raising us, our caregivers' hands. Then we're into college's hands, and they sure as heck aren't teaching us, right? And then once we graduate, if we do go to college or whatever, then once we get out of that and into the real world, now it's just like somebody just wants you to do your job. If you get hired at a company, they just want you to do your job. So it's not like we have this, how to find your purpose 101 in any of our teachings or any of our schoolings or any of that. So it's really important to understand that don't be so hard on yourself if you don't know what your purpose is and you don't know how to find it, because we're just not taught that. It's fair, right? It's fair. Be easy on yourself on this, because it's fair. And what I would say is, at this point, if you feel like you really want to know your purpose and you're sick and tired of feeling that way, a couple things. I will be having and hosting a mastermind start of this year, and I will be teaching you everything I know about finding your purpose and being successful doing it. It's called Success on Purpose. And we'll talk in that mastermind all sorts of things. Things like what's keeping you from your purpose, what's keeping you from pursuing your purpose, how to find your purpose. So it'll be all sorts of stuff, and it'll be fun. I also have a couple freebies that I give away. Should be links down below, down below this video. And of course, always just go back and watch my other videos too, and subscribe to my channel, because this is what I talk about. And I talk about tools that will help you find your purpose as well. So, all right. Well, thank you again for coming by and watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you'd like to, just go ahead and put some comments in the comment section below this video, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments you have. Okay. Thank you.